Fafhrd was a huge, full-bearded barbarian from the Northlands, his weapon a broadsword. The Gray Mouser was a small, nimble man dressed all in gray. He carried both rapier and dirk. In Lankhmar, they were considered brawlers, cutpurses, rogues, and the best fighting men in all of Nawan, for which reason Overlord Glipcario Christomerces hired them to guard an important shipment to a neighboring monarch. For once in their lifetimes of adventuring, our heroes looked forward to an easy time until the Mingles, a two-headed dragon, and an army of miniature warriors appeared to make things interesting. Hello and welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host, Liam, aka Hembar, and today I'll be doing a spoiler-free review of Fritz Leiber's The Swords of Lankhmar. Swords of Lankhmar is a 1968 novel of Fafhrd and Gray Mouser by Fritz Leiber. And yes, you heard me correctly, it is a novel, not a fix-up or a collection of short stories. This is the only Lankhmar, Fafhrd and Gray Mouser, Sword Saga, whatever you want to call it, novel of the batch. And there are 7, and this is technically the 5th, and the 5th is the only novel of the group. Now, I would say normally that this would contain spoilers for the previous books in the series, but it doesn't actually, because this series can be really read in any order. There's not much reason not to start at the first one, though you don't necessarily have to for sure. So, but they were written out of order, by the way, also. So this is the only novel of the duo. And of course, if you are new here, then, well, Fafhrd and the Gray Mouser are the best fantasy duo ever to be written. I will make that claim right now. Okay, so this is another adventure for the companions, and of course it starts in the city of Lankhmar. And at the Silver Eel, there is a brawl that involves wizardry, actually. And it starts off things with a bang, honestly. And before they are hired, this fight happens before they are hired by the city, actually, or its leader, to protect the grain fleets, which have been going missing. So, as per the typical cover, the Icy Dragon, actually related to the Homer's Scylla, which is present. So this has a sea adventure. It also deals a lot with the natures of women, men, cats, alcohol, and even what shape the world of Nawan is. Now, this one was actually one of the few stories partially written by Harry Otto Fisher, who is the guy who actually created Fafhrd and the Gray Mouser, and was the co-creator of Nawan with Fritz Leiber. And it was previously called Scylla's Daughter when it was published in a shorter form in Fantastic Stories of Imagination in May 1961. It also had another name, I think, when Harry Fisher was working on it, but I'm not sure what that was because it was never published. Now, this story involves lots and lots of rats and some cats as well. Now, keeping with the theme of sex that is somewhat prevalent in Fafhrd and the Gray Mouser, there is, I would say, more sexual stuff in this one, at least. There are some womanly characters. I don't want to say women. They're not women, but they are. They're womanly characters, and they're sexualized in a way that you probably didn't think possible. I don't want to spoil what these are, but they're very interesting characters. In fact, I didn't find it gross because it's just more interesting. And, I mean, it fits the tone of Fafhrd and the Gray Mouser anyways. It's not explicit anyways. So, I mean, we have other characters besides Fafhrd and the Gray Mouser that I think were pretty good, which are like Fritz, his vet, and Krishkra, which are actually all women. And I don't want to spoil too much, but Fritz and his vet are a little bit more important to the story. They come in early on as they are on that boat that Fafhrd and the Gray Mouser are on. But yeah, definitely it has some unsettling stuff dealing with those characters, though. I think it was unsettling. I don't think anyone find it disturbing, but I could be wrong. Of course, Fafhrd and Gray Mouser's camaraderie is probably one of the best things about these stories, and honestly, there's a little less of it here. Because of that, I actually kind of liked Swords of Lankhmar a little less than, say, like Swords Against Wizardry or Swords Against Death. But it's still phenomenal, and it's pretty interesting to see a story with a longer story arc going on. And a lot of the times we actually get more focused on the Gray Mouser, as they're not together 100% of the time, which has happened in some other stories, but those are shorter stories. And so you'd have parts where it's just Fafhrd or parts where it's just Gray Mouser. Though you still have parts where they're together. And when they are together, it's fantastic. And like I said, I think actually this is probably one of the best kickoffs to a Fafhrd and Gray Mouser story. Just gets right into it. And honestly, I think Leiber has really good uses of misdirection here. And our heroes are, of course, like always, nice shades of gray. And honestly, it's a pretty great story. It's not surprising to me. Leiber has become one of my favorite authors. And it's some very interesting things. He even gets into like some multiverse thing going on with some, like, you'll, for example, see some German spoken here on the planet of Nawan, which is pretty interesting. He doesn't go into it a lot, I think, like kind of like more Cockwood with Elric, but it's still pretty interesting. I don't have a ton to say about this, besides the fact that you should read it. So there's nothing like it, and there's a reason. Leiber is, well, he's considered a grandmaster of science fiction, and is one of the masters of sword and sorcery. And he's a guy who named sword and sorcery, actually, for those curious. But if anyone really dislikes me, please just read something by Fritz Leiber at this point, right? Please. Like, I generally try to keep the gushing to really, like, a minimum on my channel, but, like, this is the one, like, so far books, like, I'll just completely, like, gush. I guess that's what people call them, right? Gush reviews. Anyways, it's been Liam with Liam's Livestream. If you want to talk more about this, then we can go to Discord. I'll leave a link below. Thanks for watching.